I'm Brad.
I'm Joel.
And we are super excited to be here today. And I just realized 5 minutes ago that everything I'm wearing is actually from a subscription service, and I had no idea before that.
So quickly, show of hands, how many of you wonderful marketers out there have worked with influencers in the past year? Okay, good amount. How many plan to in the next 12 months? Show of hands. Okay, a good amount of you. Fantastic. Yes, big one back there. Thank you. 2 hands. Wonderful.
Well, I have some news for you. Influencer marketing is really, really hard to do correctly. And I can say that because we've been in the business for 10 years, and we've made a lot of mistakes to get to this point. And one thing we know for certain is that when you bring together creators, their audience, and brands, it's never boring.
So quick word on definitions. When we're talking about influencers, we're primarily talking about podcasts, YouTube, some blogs, but for the most part, we're talking about those who have seen such enormous growth over the last few years, podcasts and YouTube and some other digital platform. We're not talking about celebrities. Nevertheless, the influencer space in general, these folks can be demanding, they can be entitled, they can have no idea of the basic business realities that you and I face when we're trying to launch a campaign, and nevertheless, they can be arrogant and condescending about it.
Maybe even precious.
Maybe even precious. And in spite of that, this is one of the most difficult marketing channels to work with. And yet, in spite of that, we're not gluttons for punishment. We love it because it's so, so worth it. In our experience, in the brands that we work with experience, it is so worth it to them. So the OUTLOUD group's in something of an interesting intersection in that we work with brands, we execute their influencer campaigns, we do creative, we do strategy, we do the media buying. But on the other hand, we also represent influencers themselves. And in most other industries, this would be a really obvious conflict of interest. But we don't think it is. In fact, we think it's at the core of our success because here's what we see. We see that influencer marketing is an inherently relational kind of marketing. It's not transactional at all. And so if you imagine a Venn diagram with 2 big, wonderful circles, on this hand, your goals. This is everything that you want to accomplish as marketers, your KPIs for your campaign, the messaging that you want to get across, and the response that you want to see from your campaign, your ROI. On the other side, we have the influencer. They've got their audience, their passion, their enthusiasm. And where those 2 circles meet, that's where the magic happens, and something really, really incredible. So, in our experience, approaching the space with the necessary mindset is really, really critical. And where brands get tripped up, and listen, you're all marketers, so we're going to kind of take the contrarian side this morning, and we're going to make the appeal from the standpoint of the influencer. Because we've seen a lot of brands get tripped up in this space. When they approach this channel like it's any other kind of paid media, and they find out that it's not, and they can't treat it like they do radio or TV or even paid search, they find out that it's not, and they make some really, really basic mistakes. And they make basic mistakes because they start with the wrong mindset. So at the risk of sounding preachy, please hear my heart and hear my intent. I want to make the appeal on the behalf of the influencer this morning. So the first part of the mindset that we really need to understand is that we have to draw a sharp line of distinction between what is brand voice and what is brand advocacy. So just for the sake of definitions, brand voice, we're talking about the why of your company, what your messaging is, why you're doing what you're doing, your value proposition, all of that. Super important stuff. The influencer space is not the right channel to try and communicate that. And brands who come in who say, I want you to tell your audience who I am, it doesn't work. However, if we can adopt the mindset of what is brand advocacy, recognizing that we have really credible, trusted third-party sources who get to talk about your brand and why it matters to them according to their criteria, according to their passion, their enthusiasm, their interest, if we can understand that piece of it, then we're really going to set ourselves up for success. So over the last couple years, we've seen a pretty significant shift in the consumer.
We have. It's really a fascinating environment that we live in. And some of this narrative we're familiar with. But we know the 800-pound gorilla in the room for a long time has been television. If you can just get your budget to be significant enough that you can be on television, you're going to be successful. Well, listen, that narrative is changing significantly. The two people that are standing up here on stage don't have cable. Many people in this room don't have cable. And obviously, there's millions of cord cutters that are out there. And even for the people who still have cable, what's happening? DVR, fast forward, skip the ads. So as a marketer, I'm saying it's really hard to reach these people who are watching and consuming content on TV. But a lot of these people are moving over to digital platforms. Incidentally, in 2017, this is the first year where marketing spend in the digital space has outpaced marketing spend on traditional TV. Frankly, we're shocked by that it wasn't 5 years ago, but that's the reality of the world that we're living in today. And what we're seeing is on that digital space now, almost 50% of Americans are using ad blockers. So our TV's not working, we're switching to the digital platform. Hey, this is great, except 50% of people are blocking you. Well, there's another alternative, which is switching over to video, and that's fantastic. There's YouTube, there's Hulu, there's countless other platforms, and oftentimes we see a lot of pre-roll videos, right? Well, the problem is we're conditioned to try to avoid advertising. So what happens during those 10 seconds when we're waiting? Go to another tab, ESPN.com, NewYorkTimes.com. After that 10, maybe 30 seconds, I'm going back, and now I'm actually watching the content that I wanted to see to begin with. And this is really good news for the influencer marketing arena. The market is now $3 billion a year, if you believe our friends at Bloomberg, and it's continuing to grow. And it's effective. Why? It's effective because consumers trust influencers. 92% of Americans trust influencers more than they trust brands, and certainly more than they trust celebrity endorsements. 92%, I mean, 90% of Americans don't believe you should brush your teeth every day. It's impossible to get 92% of Americans to believe everything, to believe anything, but somehow we've gotten there. And I guess the real question that Joel and I want to dive into is why? Why is it that influencers are so trusted relative to brands?
Yeah, so I think there's beyond just the practical and technological changes in behavior. I think we've also seen a significant sociological and psychological change on the part of the consuming generation, right? If we think about it, this is a generation, and I'm talking largely millennials through Gen X. They came through their formative years seeing Enron and Tyco and Global Crossing collapse. And then they graduated college in the midst of the worst financial crisis since the 1930s. And they saw the bad behavior of the banks, and they saw the bad behavior of the mortgage lenders. And they don't believe brand voice anymore. That brand voice simply isn't trusted in the same way. And there are stats on this. The Huffington Post quotes 1% of millennials say that they are affected by advertising and actually believe the claims made. So the brand voice, whatever credibility it once had, it's gone. This generation, they feel like advertising is gimmicky, it is overbearing, it is manipulative. They don't want anything to do with it, and they don't trust it anymore.
Hate being sold to.
They hate being sold to. Now, there's a plus side to this, in that they see themselves as individuals, not consumers. They hate the notion of being marketed to as consumers. They're individuals. They want to be engaged with. And the best way that we can engage them is to come alongside and support content that they like and that they care about. See, the way that this new generation is consuming content, they have the 10 podcasts that they love. They have the 25 different YouTube channels that they love. They care about that content because they know that creator started from nothing. They had an idea and a camera, and they have built this audience, and they care about that. So when a brand comes alongside and supports that content that they care about, now that has credibility. Now I'm supporting you, Loot Crate and Kiwi Crate and Ipsy, because you're supporting the creator that I love. And now you're treating me like an individual. You're letting the people I trust and have credibility with me talk about why your brand matters to them. And that subsequently matters to me. Which leads us to our next piece. Second key mindset. we recognize when we start working with influencers, we have to have the mindset that this is not hired talent. We are not shooting a commercial. We are coming in and we're participating in a community. Again, these creators who have developed these podcasts, these YouTube channels, they started with a camera and an idea. And in some cases, they built audiences of millions of people around their shared interests. Because this wasn't getting made anywhere else. So they went and made it. And they rallied people around them and said, we're going to be about this kind of stuff, these ideas, this content, this creative. And what they've done is absolutely remarkable. And you look at the sheer scale of some of these channels, it dwarfs anything that's comparable on television. And so they've built these massive media empires. And so when we come in, and this is where brands really get tripped up, because they come at it in the power dynamics of, I'm paying you money, therefore I need you to say this, this, this. I need you to do it this way. I need to direct your creative. And the influencers, they want nothing to do with it, because it's inauthentic to them, it's inauthentic to their audience. But the brands who come in and say, hey, we love you, we respect your audience, we're excited about you, we're excited about what you've built here, how can we partner with you? These are the ones that do really, really well in the influencer space.
I think one last point here on this mindset, because the mindset for working with influencers is the single most important part of being successful. I have an analogy that I like to think of. And the core element of influencer marketing is the creators and their viewers. And you'll notice I didn't say the brand at all. And a brand is joining a community, like Joel said. And the way I like to think of it is there's been a dinner party every month for the last 12 months. And that's involved the creator and their viewers. They have a certain way of eating food, of interacting, of joking around. And now, this 13th month, the brand is joining that dinner party. In order to be effective, you have to be very cognizant of the norms that have been established over the last 12 months at this dinner party. And if you can have that mindset, influencer marketing can be extremely effective for you, and you're going to have a lot of great benefits.
We should talk about the benefits really quickly.
That's a fantastic idea. So the benefits, and there we go, are twofold, really, when you think about influencer marketing. They're both branding and acquisition. And it's really important to think about, at the beginning of your campaign, what your goals are, what you're looking to achieve. From a branding side, a lot of people know what they want in their brand, and there's complicated studies that you can certainly do to measure your brand lift, but there's really tangible things you can do in the influencer world as well to measure brand. First thing is views. Obviously, you can see the number of people who are viewing these videos, and these are not the same views as TV, or not the same number of impressions as the banner ads, because these are people that are trusted, that are part of a community, that are advocating for your brand. So you can see the number of views, and they're much more meaningful than some of the other channels that you'll have. The second is engagement. This is where the super users are involved. A lot of you guys are familiar with this stuff, so I'll be pretty quick. It's likes, it's shares, it's engagements. These are people who are really into the content and who are much more likely then, in turn, to be really into your products. And then the third thing is the click-throughs. So the people who've now taken the time to watch this video, to consume the content, to go click on the link, and now they've gone over to your site. And so that's the good news. I think you have some even better news.
Well, and what we've seen is that, of course, not all traffic's created equal, right? And what we've seen for traffic that an influencer sends, the response that we get back from the brands that we work with is categorically better than traffic from other sources. They stay on the page longer, they look at more views, they are more likely to convert. The time spent on site is significantly higher. And that speaks to the kind of engagement and the honest and authentic recommendation that's coming from the influencer that send them there. And then the last thing, of course, is very simply, this can also be a really powerful direct response channel. Those of you, of course, you're looking to drive new subscribers. It does work on the upper funnel. It does work as a direct response channel as well. So listen, Paul has told us that we do not have time for questions, which is like a dagger in my heart. So I will take it as a great, great compliment. If you come to our back, have a conversation, we can talk about this stuff all day. You've been fantastic. Thank you very much.